Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the next exciting part of the Doctor Who DVD Disambiguation. This time around, we ring in the era of a new Doctor. Yes, Doctor number 7, Sylvester McCoy, with Season 24. Yes, it's the beginning of the end, my friends. The beginning of the end. Well, of the classic era. Of course, we know that Doctor Who is far from being all over. All right. Let's get on with it. Season 24 of the Doctor Who DVD Disambiguation today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Alright, so the 7th Doctor's era begins with story number 148, Time and the Rani. So we see the Rani return, having not seen her since her debut in Mark of the Rani a couple seasons prior. Now, as I mentioned last time, the end of the 6th Doctor's era was somewhat tumultuous behind the scenes. And definitely a break from tradition. Normally, the regeneration from one Doctor into the next occurs at the end of the previous season's story. However, at the time... Sorry, my light's a little precarious here. I'm just going to adjust it. There we go. That's a little better, I guess. Just keeping an eye on it to make sure it doesn't fall over. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, so... things were not good behind the scenes, to say the least. And sadly, Colin Baker was let go, and he didn't want to do the regeneration story. He wanted, proposed doing a full season leading up to the regeneration, and the BBC never got back to him, so that was that. It never happened. So they needed to have some kind of regeneration, so at the beginning of the Time in the Rani, we see the TARDIS under attack by meson beams, some kind of crazy laser beams, which are apparently harmless to humans but lethal to Time Lords. So Bonnie is knocked out, and the Doctor is unconscious on the floor, and it crash lands on this alien planet. So the doors open, and some creature comes in, and a voice that we recognize almost immediately as the Rani comes in as well, flips the Doctor over, and he regenerates. He's already mid-regeneration when they flip him over, and he turns into the 7th Doctor. Now, the thing is, Colin Baker obviously was not around for that scene, so what they did was they put Sylvester McCoy in the 6th Doctor's costume and put a curly blonde wig on him. And if you look very closely, you can see his face. So he's regenerating from Sylvester McCoy in a Colin Baker cosplay outfit into Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor. Yeah, anyway. Time in the Rani as a story. Not the best regeneration story ever. I think the problem was it was such a hasty decision to have a new Doctor, and Sylvester McCoy just kind of rushed into the part. They didn't have any time really to develop his portrayal of the Doctor and to work on it a little bit prior to producing the season. So it seems very uneven throughout this season. Like his portrayal of the Doctor seems very uneven, and as a result, and the stories as well. I mean, they were really trying to revamp it and pep up the show as much as they could. So you'll notice the look and feel of the show of this season versus the previous season is considerably different. It's very, very late 80s, early 90s kind of vibe to it. You've got a whole new style of music, a whole new visual style. The entire thing is being shot on video now, which I think they started the previous season, actually, part of the budgetary constraints. And yeah, I mean, production value wise, honestly, considering what they had to work with, I think they did a fantastic job. Like visually, the last 3 seasons of the show, I think, are very spectacular in a lot of ways, and they have some really cool effects. They're starting to use CG a little bit more and mixing it with the traditional model work and full-size sets and things like that. And, considering that the BBC was basically out to kill the show, I think they did a great job just kind of working within those confines and doing the best that they could. I mean, it really looks and sounds terrific. I mean, they have these really cool CG title sequence. At the beginning, it was very striking, very, very well done, very dynamic and exciting. They've got a really, exciting new version of the theme song composed by Keff McCullough, who did a lot of the incidental music as well. They had a nice stable of composers doing new music as well. They had Keff McCullough, Dominic Glynn, and Mark Ayres all doing the music for the show now, basically rotating through the stories. They would each do 1 or 2 stories per season. Mark Ayres is a name that may be familiar to fans of the work of the Doctor Who restoration team. Mark Ayres not only started as a Doctor Who composer, but in fact restored the audio. He's an audio restoration expert as well, and he did all the audio work on every single DVD release of the classic series. All of them. All like 150 of them, or however many there are. There's a lot, but he did all the audio work on all of them. That includes the commentary tracks and everything too. He pieced all those together, and he was basically the go-to sound guy for every single classic story of Doctor Who for the DVD restoration. So big kudos to Mark Ayres. Awesome. And on top of that, he's a pretty frickin' awesome music composer as well. He kind of got his start doing music for Real Time Pictures' Mythmakers series, and that's when he kind of got involved in the Doctor Who stuff, and then he became, one of the official composers for the series. I mean, that's pretty freaking cool. Anyway, carrying on, kind of drifting into Doctor Who history territory here. We just want to talk about the DVDs. So anyway, this is story number 148. Lots of extras on there as per usual. Pretty cool. Oh, one other change for the show as well is, I can't remember if it was this season or next season. May have been this season, but they actually had the audio in stereo for the first time. Up until this point, it had been a mono show. So you got stereo audio. Everything's being shot on video, so the look is consistent throughout. You don't have that jarring difference between the filmed location inserts and the on video studio stuff. It's all video, so it all works together very nicely. First done way back in season 12 when for the first few Tom Baker stories, again for budgetary reasons. You got a nice mix of model work and CG. You got a really exciting, dynamic set of composers doing very exciting, dynamic music. I really love the music from this era, actually. Some people are kind of mixed on it, but I've always really, really enjoyed the music in this, and I think it's definitely a step up from the past few seasons where it was kind of getting a little bit stale and, more like atmospheric noise rather than actual music. Here we get into actual music again. So great stuff. So carrying on. So this is a 4-part story. Once again, we have a 14-episode season. So carrying on, we have story number 149, Paradise Towers. You're going to find a lot of fan split on the Seventh Doctor's era in general. I don't know why. I think they're a little overly harsh on it, to be honest. Paradise Towers, I actually really like. I know a lot of fans hate it, and some fans consider it the worst Doctor Who story of all time. I strongly disagree. I think there's a lot to enjoy here. Some aspects of it are very campy and over the top, but it's also, kind of a satire of, commercialism and materialism and stuff like that, and also of the class system in Britain, and I like it. I like it a lot, actually. I've always really liked it. Also, this is the first. This story is very silly and goofy and over the top, and it seems like this is going to be a comedy Doctor more than anything else. This one we begin to see glimpses of the darker Doctor that we'd be seeing in the last couple seasons of the show. So that's another reason I like it. It's actually a very dark story in a lot of ways. And I've always really enjoyed it. So there you go. Next up, we have Delta and the Bannermen, which I don't think I've actually seen this since it originally aired. Yeah, I've been rewatching the Seventh Doctor stories recently, but I haven't actually. I watched the second and third seasons. I haven't actually gone back to the first yet. But anyway, as far as I recall, this one is mostly comedy. It's mostly a farce, and I remember liking this one, and I'm not being particularly wowed by it, but enjoying it. And yeah, and then was it Delta was actually in the running to be the next Doctor Who companion, because Bonnie Langford was talking about leaving at the end of the season, so they were looking for a new Doctor Who companion. So they were kind of testing out some new actresses as potential companions. Now, of course, she did not become the new companion. That would be going to the character of Ace in story number 151, Dragonfire, where we meet Ace for the first time. This also has the return of Sabalom Glitz, who we originally saw the previous season in the Trial of a Time Lord story. He was in a couple of the stories there. Dragonfire having one of the goriest endings to a main villain ever in the history of the show. Wonderful. Fans of Raiders of the Lost Ark should enjoy that very much, because it's very much like when the baddies melted at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and similarly gruesome. A little less bloody, but still quite gruesome. Dragonfire is one I've always liked as well. That one I've rewatched a number of times. It also has the single most ridiculous cliffhanger in the history of the series, where the Doctor is literally hanging off a cliff by his umbrella, losing his grip. But here's the thing, is he's hanging off the cliff for absolutely no discernible reason whatsoever, other than he randomly decided to hang off the cliff, and that's the cliffhanger for the episode. It makes no sense. It's the most ridiculous cliffhanger you've ever seen. It's like the Doctor deliberately putting himself in peril for absolutely no reason whatsoever, and it's ridiculous. But apparently the reason for that is there was supposed to be more to that scene, but in the haste of production, they never got around to filming it. It was supposed to be he was trying to traverse this sort of ice cavern, and he had to go down to this spot to get to another area to move on to the next section. But they didn't film that part. They didn't get around to filming it. It got cut for some reason, so all they had was the Doctor dangling off the cliff. And there's some very funny stuff in the extras there, where the director, Chris Clough, talks about it, and how, he fully acknowledges that he screwed up there, and apologizes most profusely to the Doctor Who fandom at large. But yeah, so there you go. That is it for season 24. So we have Time in the Rani, which is 4 parts. Story number 100. What did I say? 148. And story number 149, Paradise Towers, also 4 parts. Story number 150, the 150th Doctor Who story, Delta and the Bannermen, which is 3 parts. And then Dragonfire, story number 151, which is also 3 parts. And there you go. So that is the 7th Doctor's debut season. All in all, it's not bad. I know a lot of fans really crap on the 7th Doctor's era, and I think that's unfortunate, because I think there's a lot of good to be found there. And you can see they really were trying to revitalize the show as best as they could under the constraints that the BBC was imposing on them. It's just... I don't know. This season, it almost reeks of desperation, like just desperately trying to do things so wildly different that it almost got derailed right then and there. But the following season, season 25, the 25th anniversary season, which we'll talk about next time, things definitely improved. But yeah, we'll talk about that next time. Alrighty, so that is it from me to you for now. So I'd just like to take a quick moment to thank my Patreon sponsors. Thanks, Patreon sponsors. You guys and gals are awesome. So big extra super duper special thanks to my 2 highest level sponsors, namely Kyle Pellegrini and Get Your Gorgeous On, the awesome e-mag maintained by Michelle O'Toole and Simon Hedger. Alrighty, that is it from me to you for now. So until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara.